Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, you have been asking for it, you have been waiting for it, and it's finally here. My Democratic France guide is ready, so let's get into it. We're starting in 1936, game difficulty is regular, as usual. As for all of my latest guides, you can find the research priority and focus priority in the description of the video, so I will not be covering them in the guide. Let's start with the building. We want to build infrastructures and full civilian factories in Nord-de-Calais and France-Comté. Our military economy is not very strong, as you can see, but we're going to produce 4 infantry equipment, 2 support equipment, 1 towed artillery, 1 truck. We're going to remove the light tanks. In terms of naval production, I'm just going to complete everything which is being built already, and once I'm done with all of these, I'm just going to build more convoys. For what concerns the army, we are going to decommission the Division Coloniale and this weaker tank template. I'm also going to change the icons for the infantry. I'm going to change the main infantry to this one and increase the priority to elite. And I'm going to change the icon for the Coloniale to this one. I'm also going to call them defensive and offensive. I'm going to change all of the decommissioned divisions, the Coloniale divisions, to offensive. I will briefly talk about the generals and the armies I created, because they will more or less stay the same until World War II. So our main offensive army, we want to use Charles de Gaulle, and this army is assigned to the front with Belgium. We have another offensive army, which we will complete later on. This will be assigned to the border with Italy, but not right now, because at the border we don't have supplies, so for now I assigned a defensive line right here. And we assigned the second best general offensively, which is Alphonse Juin. Then we have a defensive army here to protect Maginot. It's an army of 13 because the other 10 defensive are assigned to Corsica. The generals for the other armies don't matter much, so it doesn't matter what you assign to trucks. Trucks are in the middle of France. Again, this defensive army is protecting Corsica. These Alpini divisions have the Alpini like trait general. They will also go back here. The tanks are completely useless, so don't worry about them. And the cavalry will be assigned with a defensive line to protect this part of Africa. We are not going to send them at the border with Italy because we don't have supplies here, while we will have supplies here and they will not. So this is much better than defending the front. We're also going to shift-click on exercise, so all of our divisions will train until regular. In terms of the fleet, feel free to do things differently. I'm not a master at managing the fleet. What I do is I gather it entirely in the port of Toulon. The last thing for our initial setup is changing the occupation law to civilian oversight. Okay, now that the initial setup is done, I suggest saving the game, just in case anything goes wrong. You don't have to redo all of this initial setup, which is quite time-consuming. Now, in this first part of the guide, we'll not be getting into a lot of action, so we can easily keep the speed at 5 for most of the game. The first part of the guide is not difficult, but make sure to follow it very closely, because the timing for some decisions is very precise. When you get this message, just go for issue diplomatic objection, do nothing, it's going to be fine. Now, around the end of April, I suggest you make a save. And the reason is, on May 1st, there will be an election in France, and you can get a message. There are 2 options for that message. There is a bad one, which is more common, which will ask you to either increase the popularity of communism or lose some stability. And there is the much better one, which will offer you the chance to switch from civilian economy to early mobilization. Now, in order to keep this guide as hard as possible, if I get the good one, I will reload the game until I get the bad one. Of course, if you get the good one, you can keep it and you will have some spare political power compared to me. So let's see which one we get. Okay, so this is the most common one, this is the bad one. You either increase the popularity of communism, you don't want to do this, or you increase the popularity of democracy, but you lose some base stability. We're going to go for this one. Okay, as soon as you complete this focus, you will get some political power. Early on, France struggles really hard for political power, so the first thing we're going to do with this political power is we are going to pick the silent workhorse to increase a little bit at least our political power gain. The next thing we want to do, and we want to do it very quickly, is as soon as we get to 50 political power, it should be like 1 month or less after a silent workhorse, we are going to pick army defense. We're going to start building up some army experience. This is to compensate for the fact that we are not going to take part in the civil war in Spain. Now, another issue with France is stability. We never want our stability to drop too low. For this reason, as soon as we get to 100 political power, we are going to pick the improved worker conditions decision. Now, keep an eye on your army experience. As soon as it gets to 35, you want to pick professional officer corps. When Spain requires aid, you're not going to give it to them. Now, our next focus priority is the national champions. Between these two, you need to pick both, but I would pick this one first. Okay, next you should be getting free civilians. At this point, we want to start building military factories. We're going to do so in the 100% provinces first, so these two. And then we are going to build infrastructures and military factories in Picardy, Champagne, and Ile-de-France. Now, this is one of the reasons we wanted to increase our stability as fast as possible. This way we got rid of political violence, which is a very negative trait that France has. Now, it's possible to get it back if your stability drops below 50%. So from now on, we always want to try to keep our stability above 50%. Next, you should be getting the message that you have 3 military factories. At this point, we want to change our production a little bit. We want to bring the production of guns to 10, the production of support equipment to 5, artillery to 4, trucks to 3, and 1 civilian train. Now, as soon as Japan starts attacking China, the war tension will make our war support increase to 17. We can finally pick early mobilization. Of course, if you got it through the event earlier in the game, you don't need to do it now, and you have some extra political power compared to our situation. When you get this message about Turkey, I don't know if this is very impactful, but I usually just give up on Hatay. When Yugoslavia asks for planes, I would send some fighters. Now, when we get 3 military factories, we're going to add the production of anti-air and bring it to 3. We're going to bring the production of trains to 2. And we're going to set up everything else up to 25 factories, the future ones, to towered artillery. At this point, we're also going to take the war industrialists. And with our 3 civilian factories, we are going to build more military factories in all of our 100% regions. Make sure to finish the ones you were already building first. So these 2. We're also going to build infrastructures and military factories in Savoy. As soon as we get to 50 political power, we're going to take the ground support advisor to get some air experience. At 50 political power, we're going to take the decision to revoke the Matignon Agreement. As soon as you get to 17 air experience, you want to start making the new fighters and CAS. We're going to use this design for fighters and this design for CAS. We're going to produce only one of each, military factories I mean, and we're going to get them from the support equipment, one of them, and trucks, the other one. Ignore doctrines when you get this message, we're going to get them later. Also, for now, we need to stack up a little bit of political power. We need to get to 225 political power. Of course, we are going to just leave the Czechs to their fate. I do not think this message is particularly important, but I usually do not invest in Turkey. We are at 225 political power. Now, at this point, we are going to pick radio propaganda, which will increase the war support to 26 or 25, depending on your game. And we need to pick right away partial mobilization. We're also going to take this chance to adjust our divisions. We're going to start with the offensive ones. We want to add to our offensive divisions 3 artilleries and 1 support anti-air company. As for the defensive one, we want to remove 1 infantry, bring the combat width to 10, and then we want to add an engineer company, support company. We're also going to start recruiting 20 offensive divisions and 11 defensive divisions. Now, as you get 3 civilian factories, there is something very important which you need to do. The first thing you want to do is you want to build a supply hub right here in the region of Savoy, so that our front will finally get supplies. Next, we are going to build land forts. Let's start with the basics. We want to build 3 of them on each bordering province with Italy. Something like this. Then we want to do the same thing at the border with Belgium. But here you have a choice to make. If you build 3 or maybe 4 forts at the border with Belgium, when the war starts, Germany will start attacking you. This is actually beneficial because they will attack into forts, they will get heavy casualties, and we will get war score. At the same time, you need to be careful because Germany can sometimes push through the forts. You need to keep an eye on the front. If you keep an eye on the front and you manually manage your units, you will prevent Germany from pushing. But if they manage to push, that's a big problem because we are not going to be able to get back those forts. So if you want to just play it safe, not worry about that, maybe sacrifice a bit of war score at the end of the war, go on and build 6 forts in each of these provinces. If you're okay with Germany attacking you, you think you can manage the front, then you can build 3 or 4 of them. I think I'm going to go for 4 this time. So something like this. Now, when you get free dockyards, you can do whatever you want with them, but what I usually do is I build convoys. We're going to need them later to annex Italy. As we get to 150 political power, we are going to pick the financial expert. When you get your new divisions, you can assign the defensive divisions to the army that was at the border with Germany here, bring it to a total of 24, and the offensive divisions to the army of 4, which is getting ready at the border with Italy. I also suggest that you start training all of your divisions again with the shift-click option. At 150 political power, we are going to pick the light aircraft designer. Now, when you get this message from the Swiss Confederation, my suggestion is to go for further construction speed. The other one is also very good, however, so it's up to you, but I would go for more construction speed. More or less at the same time, you should be getting free civilian factories. At this point, we are going to start making an intelligence agency, of course if you have the DLC. We're also going to start building infrastructures and military factories in all of the 80% provinces. So something like this. We're also going to recruit another 24 defensive units and another 24 offensive units. This is going to bring our manpower to 0, but do not worry, we're going to get it back soon with focuses. Now, this is also a good time to check the positioning of our armies and make sure everything is fine with them. With the main army, so the one with the offensive divisions, we also want to change the motorization priority to maximum and the execute battle plans to aggressive. Let's make sure that the offensive army is at the border with Belgium. The other offensive army at this point can be at the border with Italy, and we can start planning an offensive for the northern part of Italy. The defensive army protecting Maginot can just stay there. We're not going to use our trucks for now. Make sure that the other defensive is in Corsica. The Alpini can be assigned to the border with Italy as well, and they can also help with the push. Our tanks are useless, and our forces are in Africa protecting this line. Now, keep in mind that World War II is going to start very soon, but not for us. As soon as you get your agency, go on and research the naval department. It's going to help with our naval invasions. Now, at the same time, more or less at the same time, Germany should start World War II. But as I said earlier, we are not going to be part of the war initially. At this point, we can also pick our military theorist, and we can start picking the doctrines. We are going to start with the Lang doctrines, and we are going to switch from Grand Battle Plan to Superior Firepower. You can pick the first 3 from Superior Firepower. We're going to wait a bit longer, and then we're also going to get the next 2, which are very good. At the same time, we can also pick the preferred tactic. We are going to go for Suppressive Barrage. And we can pick the first, possibly the first 2 spirits for the Air Force. We're going for Aircrew Surveys, and we're going to wait until we can get the centralized control. As we get our spy, if you have a seducer, of course, that's better, we're going to assign her to Sicily. As we get 3 military factories, it's time to design our new fighters. I would go for this design for fighters. Okay, at this point, we want to decrease the production of artillery to only 10 factories. We want to decrease the anti-air to 2 factories. We want to start making anti-tank. We're going to assign 3 factories to anti-tank. And the rest is going to go to fighters. Now, Germany is starting all of their wars, and as soon as you get to 100% war tension, you want to start fabricating a claim on Slovakia. Now, the situation is, after Belgium goes down, technically at any point Germany can start attacking you. But in case they do not do that, because we are quite strong and they sometimes get scared, if they don't declare war to us, we're going to start a war against Slovakia. And we're going to attack Slovakia and not the Germans, because the Germans are guaranteed by Japan, and Slovakia is not. So by attacking Slovakia, we bypass the Japanese guarantee. As we get to 100 political power, we want to pick the improve worker conditions decision. The reason is that if Germany doesn't attack us and we're forced to attack Slovakia, our stability is going to drop quite significantly. We don't want it to go below 50%. Now, as soon as we get our new defensive army, we are going to assign them to a fallback line just before the front line, and we're going to start training them. Now, we're also starting to get our offensive divisions, and at this point, my suggestion is to just force deploy all of them, create a new army, assign it to our main general, use this general, Jean de Lattre de Tassigny. We are going to assign them a fallback line in this area in southern France, and we're going to start training them. Make sure that they have the motorization priority to maximum and they are going to aggressively execute battle plans. We can also send all of our fleet to gather in the southern part of France. We can also start deploying all of our planes, and we can start assigning them to the southern part of France and then to the Alpine region. Also check your armies and see if they finish training, like in this case my defensive army finished training, and at this point we can assign them to the front. My offensive army also finished their training. At this point we can start planning a naval invasion with them. We're going to do it from Toulon, and we're going to do it in Livorno. We're going to assign 3 divisions to Livorno, 3 to Lucca, 3 south of Livorno, and the last one also to Livorno to make sure we get it. We can also pick the first offensive doctrine, very good doctrine from Superior Firepower, so I'm not going to talk about them anymore, you just unlock them as you go, but after the first 2, I would suggest getting the Last Spirit and going for Smoke and Fire. Now, our naval invasion is ready. At this point, it may make sense to start this war. If you think the positioning is good, if you think Italy is looking weak, like in this case, they are looking very weak, it may be a good idea to start the war. There is one thing that is very important. There are going to be elections in May 1940. If you start a war before the elections, that's not a problem. But if you start the war after the elections, you also want to wait for this focus before you start the war. So it depends a little bit on the war tension. If you're able to start the war right now, like I am, then go for it, of course. If you need to wait until after the elections, make sure that you finish the focus first, or you will struggle with stability. Now, since we're going to start the war next, I think this is a good time to save the game and to end this first part of the guide. Of course, the next part of the guide will be released next week, as usual, so make sure not to miss it. We are in a very good spot, but this is going to be an extremely challenging war. As you can see, Germany has a lot of divisions up there, so this is not an easy war. I know this guide wasn't a lot of action. The action is all going to be concentrated in the next video, where we start and fight the war. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure not to miss it. And if you enjoyed this guide, of course, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.